A very good evening and welcome along to tonight's On the Sofa. Chris is with us, but because of the weather, the internet is not playing what it should be playing. How you doing, Chris? Can you hear us loud and clear? I think she's a little bit delayed. So sadly, we can't hear from Chris because she's been away to the FSA conference over the weekend in Manchester. So would have been able to fill us in on that. Maybe a little bit later she can do that too, which lots of interesting stuff came out of it. And also, interestingly, at the county ground this week, we've lost another member of staff. Bailey Coupland has decided to leave his job and has gone to Burton Albion in League One. And we wish Bailey all the very best. A really nice chap and done a great job at Swindon. Football Operations Officer, Secretary, knew the Football League regulations inside and out. So we wish him all the very best at his new job at Burton Albion. A little bit different tonight because we like your memories on a Monday evening during the course of the summer. And we'd like to welcome Ray. Is Ray there? And Rob, who's going to join us tonight. So we're just waiting for those two to appear. What we'd like to hear this evening is your first game, games you have missed for some reason, odd reasons. You never know. There might be very odd reasons. Games that you've been in but actually missed goals because you've had to leave for certain reasons. All that kind of thing. What was your first game? We'd love to hear your comments on that this evening. And to help us along, we will have Rob and Ray very shortly to help us with those comments. So if you'd like to get in touch with us in the usual way, we'd love to have your comments for us this evening. I know we've got one already from Mike. Very nice of you to get in touch, Mike. Thank you very much indeed. And Mike says, if we can include goals we missed, on the 30th of December 1989, I missed Duncan Shearer's last-minute equaliser against Newcastle because my Geordie uncle decided we needed to leave early to avoid traffic. You see, these are the sorts of things that happen during the course of a football season. You kind of are at a match when you think it's all over, nothing's going to happen. And I think this season we've all realised never leave a football match before the end because, as we know, lots of things have happened in the final few minutes of Swindon Town games. Still waiting for Rob to join us and Ray. Rob is there, I think. Hello, Rob.
Hello. You all right, Vic?
Yeah, very well. Thank you. Ray, thank you very much indeed for joining us from your lovely suite at the county ground.
Thank you. As always.
I know we always have this joke, but it does look as that's what you're in. Very nice view. Good evening, gentlemen. Yes, we thought we'd do it slightly different tonight. Rob, you've got a ridiculous record of consecutive matches. I know it was sort of briefly interrupted by, as we know, COVID. It interrupted a lot of us going to games, and we all understand the reasons for that. But have you managed to find your total now or not?
I haven't got the total, but it goes back to the 2nd of May 1986 was the last one I missed that was not COVID related. And obviously I had the pleasure and very thankful for it to have actually still been at most of the COVID games as well, thanks to the commentaries during that season with the BBC. So I think in the end I only missed 11 actually in the stadiums during that season. And they were the away games where they just simply wouldn't allow away reporters to travel. So it was for circumstances beyond my control, but anything within my control, it's the Halifax away game. 2nd of May 1986 was the last one I didn't make.
Goodness me. Well, if it makes me feel any better, I think I was there for that one. So anyway, there you go.
You were. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Incredible game. Ray, how about you? What was your first match?
Yeah, so can't compete with Rob's record, but I've always been fanatical, and that actually started almost 50 years ago. So it was the 50th anniversary was coming up in August. Actually, it was a pre-season friendly against Burnley, and my dad took me. I must have been about 9 going on 10, and I went along absolutely no idea what to expect. Really, I already loved football by that age, but I'd never been to anything like it, and it obviously wasn't that big being a pre-season friendly, but. It was amazing, really. The whole shebang, sights, sounds. I'd never seen a pitch that looked like that. I grew up playing on pitches where we had to get cowpats off the pitch before we could play. So I'd never seen a professional football pitch. I remember how pristine the kits looked. and everything about the day, really. But I also went along, I guess, not expecting to hear any music. I hadn't sort of figured out there was a tannoy, but it was Totally Tropical, Going to Barbados, stuck in my mind from that day. I remember that being played, I think, half time on the tannoy, and I always associate that piece of music with that first game.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, at that moment when you first go into a stadium, I remember the first time I went to the county ground was a schoolboys match, actually. North against the South. Kenny Stroud was playing for the South. I scored as well, if I remember rightly. And there's nothing quite like walking up the steps of the town end for the first time, and then you see the pitch. There is something like that, Rob, that you can't quite replicate. It's like when you go to a Speedway stadium for the first time, you see the track, the red shale. You can't quite replicate that, can you?
No, and it's especially when you do it at such a young age, which I'm guessing all three of us are probably in that same situation. And my dad used to take me pretty much from when I was about 5 years old onwards. So my run of home games goes back a lot longer than what I just told you in terms of the away game at Halifax, because he used to take me religiously every week. And I same as you, same as what you just said. I mean, you, as a young, wide-eyed boy, really with no expectations and everything in front of you, the first thing you see it's flabbergasting, isn't it? It's such a massive, great big stand. As far as you're concerned, it's such a massive, great big pitch. All these people in stadiums that you never thought you'd ever see so many. You know, it's just awe-inspiring to a lot of youngsters, and you can imagine that. We've talked about this many times before. You've got to attract that younger generation, because if you do attract them when they're young, they do turn into people like us who do want to then experience that buzz constantly as you get older. Buzz, if you can call it a buzz.
Whether they want to turn into people like us, that's a moot point, I think, at this present moment. Martin, hello, Martin. What a run, Rob. A big celebration when the run hits 40 years. That's
last away game of this season. This will be yes, this season coming. It'll be 40 years. So
yeah, I think Martin Smithers is organising the social event around it. So
I'll wait for that in 2036
then. My first match versus Port Vale, August 94. Fjortoft Scott score. That in the town end with my school friend at 15. Hi, Anthony. My first ever game, Blackburn Rovers away, 1990 playoff first leg. When the first goal went in, Steve Foley was hit on the head by a cheeseburger. You see, Walsall on this season, our grandson got completely showered in chips when we scored the goal, which is a fantastic atmosphere. And that atmosphere, Ray, is difficult to replicate again, isn't it? You know, that moment when something like that happens, it's difficult to find anywhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've still not good even at this age at controlling my emotions when a goal goes in. I don't know. It's like it's a spontaneous thing, isn't it? You know, I kind of don't at my age when a goal goes in, I think. But yeah, it is. It's like nothing else, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, at Walsall, and then the final whistle again. That's another moment. You know, when you take Wimbledon, you take Tranmere, you take Bradford City at home, Colchester in the cup. Colchester in the league with George Cox getting that penalty in the last minute. Incredible, isn't it? I mean, those are moments that you take away from this season, because we finished 12th. But those moments, Rob, are the ones that you take away, aren't they?
Yeah, it's always the games where you seem to close games that you score late are the ones that always stick in the memory, aren't they? I mean, there's many other games where we've either been comfortably in charge of or been comfortably defeated that also stick in the memory. But you always think of the most exciting ones as the ones where there are very late goals that change the outcome of the result. And like you say, for reasons best known to only Mr. Holloway, I think, over the course of this season, we seem to have been able to get ourselves in trouble in games, but get ourselves out of it late on. And they were fabulous moments, weren't they? Those late goals, all of them late goals. Shamanga's penalties, the George Cox penalty, the fabulous own goal against Bradford, which will be talked about, I'm sure, for years and years to come. To be honest, because it was such a big game for them rather than us at the time. It was a huge game for them, and of course we took the points away from them in the last few moments. So those are the sort of things that you will always bring people flooding back to the county ground once they've had that little buzz. Then that's the sort of thing you want to see week after week.
Yeah, let's hope that we get more comfortable victories this season. Although
It'll be nice.
The odd last-minute winner, I'm quite happy with that. What about games you've missed, Ray? Are there any that you think, oh no, I missed that because any that you know?
Not really. I usually had made things when I could, and there are other things along the years where you can't. Like my wedding day, for example, sticks in my mind. I did actually, crazily for me, I did get married in the football season, but it managed to turn out when we were away. I can't remember whether that was engineered or not, but talking about our memories, we were away at Port Vale in that. Somebody just mentioned their first game was Port Vale in '94. This was the away game. Actually, was coincided with my wedding, and it was a 2-2 draw. I remember that, and I was on my best behaviour not to talk about football, obviously. But actually, my father-in-law, as part of his speech at the wedding, actually presented me with a team photo from the team at the time and a message from the club. His company was involved in sponsorship, so I kind of had that memory of the day. So he mentioned it before I did. So I did pretty well keeping football off the table. Then ironically, in the honeymoon hotel that we had, there was a family of Port Vale supporters there as well. So I'd always had a bit of a soft spot for Port Vale until the playoffs recently.
Yeah, so I was going to say, maybe that soft spot has gone away a little bit. Yeah. I have to say, we got married on the day that Swindon were away at Gillingham. 2-2 draw. Can't remember much about it, but Chris Kamara and David Moss got the goals. I seem to remember. And the only reason it was New Year's Eve, and the town were at home, I think, on the 1st of January. So we thought it was a good idea to get, anyway. There we are. Let's have a look. Loads more coming in. Thank you very much indeed. We love your comments. This is from Sean. Remember at home to Grimsby once, 2-1 down, awful performance. Left. By the time I got to the county ground pub, we won 3-2. Not done that mistake ever since. 2 pens in added time, if I remember, says Rob. Hi, John again. The floodlights drew me in as a kid, besides following my dad's footsteps. Hi, Paul. My 9th birthday, 30th of December, 1967. 1-0 versus Torquay, Don Rogers. Trained from Chippenham, walking to the ground amongst the crowds, walking behind the town end, hearing the chanting from inside the ground, climbing the wooden steps of the Shrivey, nervous excitement, and then the first glimpse of the grass and sand, the smell of tobacco, the godlike players running out in red and white. We'll never forget it. That's a pretty good summing up, Rob, isn't it?
Excellent, isn't it? And it's good that you mentioned the sand as well, because I can remember the first couple of games that I went to. You barely saw much grass, if I'm truly honest. It was sand and mud at that stage, and very little else. But it is. It brings the atmosphere home, doesn't it? That's the thing. When you see a description like that, it just brings it back into your home, exactly what it was like in those first few moments. Fantastic.
Yeah, you talk of pitches. I mean, my goodness me, that pitch behind you, Ray, I mean, that's as good at the end of the season as it is at the start, isn't it? That is how it used to look for pre-season friendlies when you first went back.
Exactly. That was my first experience, but I do remember it changing. I remember ones like the Everton pitch when we had the draw against Everton down here. That didn't look quite like that.
No. If you want to, by the way, I think the club are holding a Q&A with Matt Povey, the head groundsman, about the stitching of the pitch. I think it's the 3rd of July. Tickets are available on the OSC website. So if you want to go along to that, book your place. And you can have a Q&A with Matt Povey. Can you describe exactly the stitching process? I don't believe a reel of cotton is involved. I don't think it is anyway. But yeah. So if you want to go along, and Matt will explain everything on the OSC website, you can get tickets for that. Danny Invincible versus Peterborough. Last minute goal was pretty special in more ways than one. We could have gone down instead of Rovers if that had not gone in. But Rob, we then depended on Rovers, I think, losing 2 games. They had to lose, didn't they?
They had to lose. They had to not win one and lose at least 2. So they could afford one. We could afford them to have 1 draw, basically, but nothing more than that. And if Invincible doesn't score, it's as good as done, because literally it would be same points. Rovers just need a point to stay up. And it was very, very late on, as you say, very, very late on. It was a great goal, great finish. And it just gave us that 4-point gap then that just made things a bit more interesting. I think we all came out of the ground still thinking it's pretty unlikely we're going to stay up here. With 3 games left, they're probably going to get at least 1 win. But we all know what pressure does to teams at the end of the season, and that's what the impact of what that goal did. All of a sudden, Rovers were thinking this is going to be a bit of a doddle. Now it isn't, and they come a cropper in the first game. As soon as you come a cropper in the first game, puts all the pressure on the next one, and they lost the second one too. And that was more than enough at that point for us to be able to make sure that we were going to retain our status, which was fabulous.
Yeah, I think it was a Monday night, if I remember, when they played their last game, wasn't it? And I remember following it on a thing called CFAX. You might remember that.
They played 2 midweeks, didn't they? 2 midweeks.
Yeah.
They had to play to fit their games in, and obviously it caught up with them in the end.
Yeah, younger viewers might know that CFAX is the precursor of the internet. We all remember
so many games that have been watched on CFAX over the years from people around our era.
Was it page 302? I think that's when it was, wasn't it? That was the football page, and then scores were on 304. I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Doing sports programs with CFAX on, essential. We'll get to one of those games in a minute, I think. Martin, my first game was February 2005 under Barnsley, a 2-1 win with Sam Parkin netting twice, I think. He probably did, to be fair. Started going in about 1950 as a 2-year-old when my late father started taking me out to the county ground. Don't remember too much about those days, but do remember my early school days going. We used to sit on the old wooden stand on the north side. Yeah, the old grandstand where the Arkle's John Trollope is now. They tore that down in 1970 after the League Cup win and put up the Arkles. But it was a single-story wooden construction, and it had benches in the front of it. And I always remember one particular game, there was loads of straw piled up against those benches because it was so frozen and muddy and horrible that they had to get all the stuff off. Hi, Dave. Nice to hear from you, Dave the Chair. Hi, Vic. My dad took me to my first match versus Port Vale in 1982. We won 1-0, Paul Rideout. Dad said to me before the game, 1 game or 1 game only, laugh out loud. We were both hooked within 43 minutes. 43 years on, come on, you Reds. Bonkers, isn't it, Ray? I mean, what do we do to ourselves? It's this emotional madness that goes through 90 minutes every Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I say, it doesn't take long to get hooked, does it? I mean, I was hooked pretty much right from the off, really. And just listening to you and Rob actually just now talking about last year, I'd kind of like trawled back through some memories of years gone by, but actually those memories are still coming. I was thinking about the Bradford game last year. I ended up with a guy that had travelled over from Austria, sat next to me, and he got talking. And one of the reasons he was at the Swindon game was because he was an XTC fan, and so he felt a connection to the town. But he'd crammed so much into this visit. He said to me after about 20 minutes, I went to the Manchester derby. This is so much better. And then it occurred to me, actually, of course, the goal music sense is working overtime. He got to it about 5 times. And I thought, wow, it was made for him that day.
Yeah, I'm really pleased they play that again now. I think, it's a Swindon connection, isn't it? And I think I know one disappointed fan from America. Hi, Todd, if you're listening. He was very disappointed when he came over and it was Dave Clark 5. So I'm really glad that they play XTC. I know there's a big XTC festival coming up in Swindon in the not too distant future, if I remember rightly.
That's right. The Austrian guy I mentioned is over for that as well, apparently.
No, brilliant. Well, if you are going to that, then enjoy it. Have a lovely time. Lots of stuff going on, I know. Remember York City away. Kickoff was changed to 11 a.m. Talking about leaving early, lost 1-0 as well. I remember winning 3-0 up there.
I think it might have been the year before or a couple of years before it. Yeah, I remember that one as well. It was hideous that it got moved to 11 o'clock because obviously in those days we're talking pre-current 419, as people of a certain age will not remember how long it used to take to get from Swindon to Gloucester before you got anywhere near the M5. And of course, for an 11 o'clock kickoff, that made things even worse, unless, of course, you went the old Burford route, which is, again, hideously horrible when it comes to early in the morning. So, yeah, some of those trips were extremely long in those days. And you might be able to do it now in a couple of hours less time than what you used to be able to do it in with the M6 playing ball, the M1 playing ball, of course.
of course, we tackled the A417 again. Not so often this time, I don't think, do we? So we'll see how that's progressed when we get going again. Bad moments at matches. Remember Sunderland away at Old Roker Park. Swindon fan from Newcastle bought his mate, who decided to show his Newcastle shirt after our 1-0 win. Not very pleasant leaving the ground. I can imagine so. I, Carol, bumped into some Rovers fans in a bar in Leeds not long after they got relegated. They didn't appreciate me thanking them for saving us from relegation. I don't suppose they did. Keep your thoughts coming in. It's great. And thank you very much indeed to Mark behind the scenes who's sending them through. I always like your comments. Thank you very much indeed. So, games you've missed for reasons we've kind of explored, but recently I was delighted to be asked to do the end of season presentation at Ottery St Mary, and I was sitting next to the great Sean Taylor, or Sean Taylor, and I did admit to him, much to my chagrin, that I missed the Birmingham away game, and that takes me back to the CFAX, because I was presenting the sports programme in Devon that day. And I remember putting on the CFAX and it said Birmingham 4, Swindon 1. And I thought, I'm not going to look at this again. And then, of course, Rob, the rest is history.
That game is etched in the memories of everyone who was there, and probably etched in the memories of everyone who wasn't there as well, because you've heard all the stories before. And no one will ever
so.
No one will ever tire from talking about it, because you can't really put yourself back in a position where 4-1 down, we'd had injuries in the first half. It just never looked like Swindon were going to get anything other than a damn good paste in that day. And then it was one of those, I don't know whether Glenn Hoddle's ever spoken about it in the past, but it was just one of those things where he decided, we're just going for this. There's no benefit in just eking this out and trying to keep our goal difference down. We're going for it. And we effectively went 2-4-4 from what I can recall. It was just a bizarre formation that the likes of which you're never likely to see again. We effectively had 4 forwards up all the time. We had the midfield pushing up behind them as well, and pretty much left Colin Caldwell and Sean Taylor to do it on their own at the back. And of course, Birmingham never had a clue what was going on. Neither did we, watching from the opposite end of the pitch. Unfortunately, all the goals went in at the other end to where we were in those days at St Andrews. But as soon as you got one back, you thought, God, that's just a consolation. Get 2 back at 4-3, and you think, you never know, we might nick a point here. And then to go level from 3 goals behind in what seemed like a very, very short period of time. I'm not sure exactly how many minutes it was, but it felt like it was about 10 minutes we'd scored those 3 goals. And then to go in front, you could see the faces of the Birmingham fans. They couldn't believe what had just hit them. And then to nick a 6th at the very end as well, it was just incredible. And ultimately, it was obviously a special season for Swindon, that one. But that turned out to be the fixture that relegated Birmingham, because they lost all their momentum from that game and then didn't win another match that season. And you can understand why, because it was such a turnaround, the like of which I don't think we'll ever see that one again.
Well, that makes me feel a lot better. Thanks very much for that. Hi to John. The highlight for me is last-minute goals when normally mild-mannered ladies appear to throw awful abuse at the poor ball boys. And then he says, love to Fiona, Rob.
Thank you, John.
I think we know who that is, John. Thank you very much indeed. That was a memorable night. That was that the draw or the win? I can't remember, because we won up there with a Jack Payne penalty, didn't we? And then we got an equaliser in the last minute.
That was the draw. I think that was the draw. That was the Luke Jeff missed penalty, and then score the rebound, wasn't it? I think.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, both amazing games. Anyone remember Port Vale away early 80s? We lost 3-0, but was by far the better side on the day. On the Monday, the advert headline said, honestly, folks, we were robbed. Yeah, well, we could say that so many times throughout the course of the years, couldn't we, really? Hi, Anthony. We've all been lucky enough to witness some great loan debuts too. James Milner, Michael Carrick, Jimmy Davis, R.I.P., David Thompson, Ian Culverhouse, who then signed permanently, and Neil Webb, to name a few. We have had some great loan signings, haven't we? And actually, when you think back to the Tottenham loanees we had as well, I mean, Ray, who sticks in your mind loan signings? I'm going to go Peter Eastoe for obvious reasons, because he was a loan originally and then turned out to be a fabulous goal scorer. So, you got any that stick in your mind?
Yeah. Milner definitely, but Jimmy Davis, I thought what an incredible talent he was. It's so tragic what happened, but he was a terrific little player. And so those two definitely stand out. And you mentioned Michael Carrick, him as well. Yeah, they were kind of already a different level at a very young age, weren't they?
Yeah, there were. I mean, I remember Michael Carrick, and you just think that's class, isn't he? He certainly looked it. How about you, Rob?
Yeah, I think they probably cover most of the really inspirational ones. I guess we have to put Owen Doyle in that category as well, don't we? In terms of what he achieved in that.
Well, Jerry Yates as well. Then
Jerry Yates alongside him. I mean, those two probably as a duo stand out above anybody else, I would think, in terms of what they achieved in their time that they were here as loanees. But there have been a lot of really special talents that have graced the county ground, maybe for only a very short time. And maybe at Swindon never really achieved what they then went on to achieve. You never really quite expected it to happen. And you've had the opposite as well. I remember the likes of a John Sutton coming down here, who was supposedly fantastic. The Chelsea loanees, Islam Farouz and people like that. And you think, where are these players going now? And they end up achieving absolutely nothing in their career. And even though they came from big clubs.
Elliot, the fullback, I think he played 45 minutes. Was he from Newcastle? Didn't play for very long. Oh, Gordon says loan signing Wes Fodringham.
Yeah.
How could we forget Wes Fodringham? Absolutely right. Fantastic. One of my best 5 all-time Swindon goalkeepers. We could do that as well if you want. Top 5 goalkeepers. Just think of that. Hi, Nick. My biggest game I missed was the Charlton away game in the playoffs. It was stock take at work and no chance of getting away. Decided not to find out the score and watch it when I got home. The plan worked until I walked into Tesco and on the way home at 10:30, and they were still listening to the game, still on the radio. I was lucky enough to be doing that. It was quite a game, if I remember rightly. The great Alan McLaughlin was alongside me that night as well, which is always a very special memory. So, yeah. Do you go that one, Ray? Were you at the playoff?
I was there. Yeah, incredible night. Yeah, it was so much drama. It was unbelievable because it's one of those games you thought it got away from us. And it was incredible that we managed to sort of get there in the end, really, because the Gordon Greer sending off, you really thought that was it then. But because they'd started quite well as well, hadn't they? From memory, Charlton, they were looking dangerous. But,
and of course, it was a Stephen Derby game as well, wasn't it?
Yes, of course.
I've done a walk in his memory. Well, his memory, but his obviously the MND issue that obviously is now fresh in a lot of people's minds. We've done that this year, so that's got a special memory in all of our hearts.
Yeah, absolutely. Great moment when he scored that penalty, and there's that iconic picture of him and Phil Smith, isn't there? Who had a terrific game, if I remember, Ray, that night. Phil Smith came on after David Lucas got injured.
That's right. Yeah, that again was sort of the omens weren't looking good when Lucas went down. But like I say, Phil Smith did really well. And it was an incredible game for like twists and turns, really.
Yeah, he was unlucky to miss out on the final, I thought, as well. Against Millwall. Malcolm, Thankty Darbo and Charlie Colkett. Say no more. Yeah. The only thing I remember about Colkett, he had a terrible game at Doncaster. You might remember that on Easter Monday, but he provided that cross for Yasser Kasim to score the winner at Bolton, if I remember rightly. Really good win. Great cross. Kasim finished it off. Sounds silly, but best game, Town lost. Swindon Town 3, Manchester City 4. All stands clapped at full time. Town were brilliant that day, but City were just 1 goal better. Goodness me, we played some teams, haven't we? When you think about it over the years, extraordinary, really. Top 5 goalkeepers then, Rob. Can you name them off the top of your head?
I guess you always recall the ones that you've seen, don't you? Because obviously I never saw Peter Downsborough, and I'm sure he's in your top 5. But I can't really comment so much because I never really saw much of him. So Fraser Digby would be there, of course. I think personally, albeit not, he's actually one of the best keepers we've had. I would have to put Kenny Allen in just because of what an impact he had in that famous season. So I think that's probably where I would go. The Wes Foderingham probably nicks in fifth. I would think is probably the fifth one of those. But we've had some fabulous keepers, haven't we? When you look back, and we've had lots of them as well. Especially that COVID season where it felt like we were having a new keeper every week.
Well, we basically did. I mean, every so often one of them comes back to play, and you think, did he play for us or didn't he play for us? And then, there was one who went off to Bournemouth and then ended up in their first team.
Travers, he looked a very good keeper, but of course we only saw him for, I think it was 3 games, or something like that.
Yeah. I'll come to you in a minute, Ray. I can see you jotting them down. And Anthony says, my top 5 goalies: Fraser Digby, Nicky Hammond, Foderingham, Petr Brezovan, and David Lucas. Now, I have to say that had Brezovan not got injured, he was an absolute stone bottom certainty to get into that top 5, because that debut at Hartlepool, for those of us who were there, we'll probably never forget that. It was an extraordinary performance. And Gordon follows that up. Goalkeepers: Brezovan. Pity got injured. Absolutely right. Hi, Chris. Jim Barron. Do you know what? He's kind of there for me. Jimmy Allen, Fraser Digby, Wes Foderingham, Sol Bryn. Sol Bryn, yes. A lot of people's favourites for reasons I can't imagine. Okay, Ray, what have you got?
Yeah. I went Jimmy Allen, Fraser Digby. I had Kenny Allen as well as Rob. I remember what a character he was. Yeah. And Brezovan definitely, and Wes Foderingham for me. Yeah.
Well, you're right about Downsborough, number 1 for me. That 15 minutes at Wembley, nothing will ever top that. Extraordinary performance. Fraser Digby, obviously, Jimmy Allen, Foderingham, and I'm kind of Jimmy Barron myself, because he was such a commanding presence in that goal. He wasn't with us for very long, and of course we all know he played for a team down the line, but we won't hold that against him. But there's probably another one which I've forgotten. But Craig, hi Craig, listening in far off Scotland. Digby, Allen, Jay, Shay Given, Foderingham, and Woolacott.
Shay Given again. That's a name that you sort of tend to forget, doesn't it? But I don't think any of us thought. I can remember looking at the first time I got a Shay Given. He's too small. He'll never make it. And look at what a career he had.
Amazing. Yeah, Kenny Allen was the other one I was going to put in with Jim Barron. They're kind of vying for that top 5 spot. I mean, I always remember with Kenny Allen, he made one save at Northampton. We won 1-0 on a horrible, filthy day. Extraordinary save in 85-86. Yeah, telescopic arms.
Crucial period, Vic, as well, wasn't it? Because we won at Northampton on the Saturday, then had to go to Stockport on the Monday night. Got absolutely battered for 80 minutes, never got a kick. Kenny Allen and the defence kept them out, and we scored 2 goals in the last 10 minutes to win it 2-0. And suddenly, from what looked like a really tough 2 games, they pretty much made that season that weekend.
Was that the 6 wins away on the trot?
That was 2 of them, yeah.
Yeah. Once that's a club record, wasn't it? 6 away wins. Tim Flowers says John. He's put that in there. We have had some great goalkeepers, no question. But if you sort of pick one of the modern era, if you like, and I'm not, post Fraser Digby, I guess Foderingham would certainly be probably the best that we've had. Where are we going? I always rated Kevin Roberts too, but looking back, he didn't play that many games for us. I can't
remember how many he played, but I do remember Kevin Roberts. But yeah.
I mean, well, we'll see what happens with. I don't know whether we're going to get another goalkeeper. Obviously, we've got what we assume to be number 1 this season, haven't we? So.
Well, we have to wait and see what happens with the Bycroft situation, I guess, is the answer to that. Because I'm assuming that if he decides he wants to stay, then Ian Holloway will very happily keep him back in the squad. But he'll obviously come in as number 2. So if he can get himself fixed up with the number 1 position somewhere, I think we'd all wish him well.
Yeah, we would, yeah. How can we forget Mildenhall? Oh, goodness sake, of course. How could we possibly forget Steve Mildenhall? I'm ashamed for even not mentioning him. I'm so sorry.
We definitely should mention him. I don't think as a goalkeeper he would get into my top 5. As a loyal servant of the club, absolutely. But I think there have been better goalkeepers than Steve Milner, albeit he'll always have a lasting impression on all of us. And I'm sure he's got a print somewhere in his body and the lower part of his anatomy that he's also got an imprint on as well. No one will ever forget Portsmouth that were there.
Well, that's what Anthony's written. He said Friday night at Portsmouth. It was an extraordinary performance, wasn't it? Bearing in mind what he'd been through. I mean, incredible.
I was going to tie that up, those memories, actually, because that one, I was watching on telly, actually, that one, but it was on my birthday, so I definitely remember when his incident happened. And the guy mentioned just now, the Man City match back in the 80s, the 4-3, that was also on my birthday. And I remember being soaked on Stratton Bank, but thinking, what a game of football. And that's when I've gone out of a game where we've lost and thought, that was a really good game. So that's...
David, who said that, said Richard Keane goal against Sheffield Wednesday in the Milk Cup.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, because you might remember the story. Either Kenny Allen was injured or they couldn't play him. He was cup tied or something. Then we had an injury to another goalkeeper. So Lou brought in Richard Key, who was at Brentford, to play in that game against Sheffield Wednesday in the Milk Cup, which we won 1-0. And then, of course, went to Ipswich in the next round and got stuffed 6-1, 6-2. And Richard Key played in that one. But he played, if I might say, a key part in that game against Sheffield Wednesday. So, yes, Richard Key. And Craig rather kindly says there was an extra ball on the pitch that night in Portsmouth. Yes, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. And John says, I don't know whether he's joking or not, Kovar and Jimmy Glass. Now, Jimmy Glass, what an extraordinary story. And he's a legend in Carlisle, isn't he?
There's two stories there, isn't there? Because Jimmy Glass for us didn't really achieve anything at all. But Jimmy Glass as the goalkeeper for Carlisle will always be remembered as for the goal that he scored to keep him in the league. And there was an awful lot of people that will look at Matty Kovar and say that goalkeeper just was horrendous for us. But he was still the goalkeeper at Oxford that day at the Kassam on the only time we've ever won there. So there's always tends to be, when you look at little anomalies about players that you least expect, there's always something that you can generally pick up on that is so anti what you actually thought of the player himself. You'd never believe it. And the Kovar performance against Oxford that day was fantastic.
Didn't he go on to play in Europe?
Yeah, and he played. He's a very. I can't remember exactly where he is now, but he's quite well thought of in the league that he's at, and he's in the top flight whichever country he's in. So, yeah, he's gone on to have a bit of a career, but it was too big a step for him to play first team football here. I think for most of the time he was here.
Yeah, and also it was that COVID season, wasn't it? I mean,
it was. Yes.
So you saw a lot more than we did of him, but I remember near post was not his strength, was it?
We saw a lot of near post, Vic.
Martin says Phil Smith, one of the best understudy goalkeepers the club has had. I don't think there's any question about that. I think he was a loyal servant. I think it was his 6 managers he had whilst at Swindon. Great bloke, and he always got good words to say about Phil Smith. Last game I saw on my birthday, we got stuff 4-1 by Wigan on an Easter bank holiday Friday. Didn't we play MK Dons that Easter as well and get beat 3-0 at home on the Monday? But one of them was on the telly, I seem to remember. Yeah. So I think we've got at least 10 goalkeepers now, at least 10 that we could put in that. So and actually, the more people mention them, the more you remember them, don't you? It's that simple. Yeah. So,
you could always throw in goals we missed, Vic. We haven't talked about goals we missed yet, have we?
What do you mean?
Because there's been a couple of little trips we've had over the years where things haven't conspired quite in the way that we'd hoped, have they? If I remember back to Carlisle a few seasons ago, I had the joy of having to commentate up there. And the coach got stuck in a traffic jam on the motorway, didn't it?
Yeah, we did.
We had the local radio on the coach, to see the game 2-2 after 35 minutes by the time we finally arrived at the ground. I rushed around the other side of the stadium to meet Mr. Halls to do the rest of the commentary. And what happened in the rest of the game?
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing. And it finished 2-2.
What was even worse, we spent the night in the car park at the county ground because I'd worked till 1 o'clock on the Friday night. We thought, well, we'll drive up to Swindon and sleep in the car park, get the bus at 6 o'clock. We should say the reason for the traffic jam, there was a fatal accident on the M6. Yeah. So missing the start of a football match is a pretty minor thing. But nonetheless, we did miss all the goals, yes. And what was even worse, I got there and I got searched by a steward who wanted to look into my backpack that I had with me. Rightly so, I guess. But frustrating, to say the least. And as you say, you sat down. No sooner did you sat down, it was half time. And then, I don't know what happened in that.
Next to Germany. The second half.
Yeah, that was under Di Canio, of course. Germany, John says that's where Kovar is now. 6-0 at Scunthorpe on the Monday. Thank you, Martin. Yes, Ty Belford was in goal, was he not?
Oh, yes.
Yes. My son visited Sparta and sent me a pic of framed Kovar shirt in the stadium. Is he there possibly? Well, John says he's in Germany, so if anybody knows for certain where he is, that'd be great. Where's Kovar? That's another thing. Bayer Leverkusen, I'm told. So that's where he is. So, Ray, any memorable moments for you? Not necessarily the football, but moments, best food, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I kind of associate with lots of games with moments and different memories that are not necessarily the football. I'll probably go back to, I mentioned my first game. My first away game was Reading and in 76-77 season. Yeah. And I was really lucky. I mentioned my dad took me to the first game. We never had a car growing up, and my dad got to games once in a blue moon. But a family in the village kind of took me under their wing and used to take me to football. And they actually are really grateful they did. They took me to Reading for my first away game. But I remember a number of things about it. It was a horrendous day. We got hammered, but we went in the Reading home end. And it was a bit of a pattern, actually, with the family that I went with. I guess looking back, it was because they were looking for somewhere that was a bit more family orientated, because it wasn't good days with, violence and stuff then. And so I actually experienced my first away game at Elm Park in the home end. So that was a part of the day I remembered. So that was a bit different because they scored 4 against us. So it was quite an excited home end as well. So that was a bit of a different experience. But again, back to the music stuff, always stuck with me is I think the halftime music included Dancing Queen from ABBA. And I can't listen to that now without thinking of a 4-1 defeat. So that kind of stuck with me really as well.
Yeah, well, I might have mentioned to you earlier, that was my wife and I's first away game together. She had a Mini which kept breaking down in the rain, and the rest is history, as they say. What a day! It's just an awful game, wasn't it? And anyway, it goes on, doesn't it? Does anyone remember conceding 2 goals away at Leicester City in injury time? That was bleak. Now, if I remember rightly, that was twice. Yeah, wasn't that 2 seasons in a row?
2 seasons in a row. First one was for a 3-3 draw. The other one was a 3-2 defeat, I think.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And it was both refereed by Calvin Morton, and he gave a penalty when it was closer to the halfway line in the penalty area, from what I recall.
Yeah, it was bizarre, wasn't it? That it happened so twice in 2 seasons. Missed Newcastle away train delays. Lived in Grantham at the time. Had to go back home. Best food, chicken balti pie, Main Road, 1999. Now, Craig, as you might know, is an expert on football food. He writes lots of detailed blogs about games in Scotland that he watches, including the mac and cheese pie, which I'm desperate to try. And apparently you can get them down here, but they look absolutely fantastic. So if ever I go up and watch Hamilton Accies again, whichever league they're in anymore, I'm going to try and get one of those. On the 15th of August 2023, Kovar signed a 4-year contract with German Bundesliga club Bayer Leverkusen. A transfer fee of up to 7.7 million, including add-ons, was agreed between Man United and Leverkusen.
Good grief.
There you go. They obviously watched the game at the West Ham as well.
Yeah.
Best pie I've ever had was a chicken balti at Leighton Orient. Danny Wilson first game and we won. That was Boxing Day, I think, wasn't it? Lee Peacock scored, if my memory correct. It was so good, I went back for a second. They do very good pies at Leighton Orient. I have to say it's a bit of a squeeze in that away and getting a pie at half time, but they do them. My first away game was the League Cup semi-final at Wolves. My second, the Liverpool game the next season. The League Cup semi-final at Wolves. What's your... Yes, the pain. Ray, what's your biggest cup game, do you think?
Probably the Arsenal 4-3. I think that's a game that had everything, and that was such a big night as well. So that's probably my biggest cup game. I did go to the League Cup semi-final at Bolton as well, and that started all right and turned into a bit of a disaster. But the most enjoyable was the Arsenal 4-3.
I've always thought if Jan Argafjortov hadn't have scored, we'd have probably won that. They suddenly woke up. Yeah, they suddenly woke up. They had a decent team, didn't they? McAteer, all that lot. Very good. What's your biggest cup game, Rob?
Didn't mention John McGinley. I don't want to mention John McGinley.
No, don't mention John McGinley. No,
biggest cup game, I think I probably, in terms of biggest cup win, it definitely would be Arsenal in that quarterfinal, because I can remember that. I can remember the first leg actually more than I can remember the second leg, because I'd never been anywhere close to Arsenal before as a young lad. That was a very special day when Billy Tucker scored that header in the to equalise for us. But we've had so many, haven't we? When you actually look back further, this generation who supports Swindon probably can't remember hardly any decent cup ties. But there were many runs, and the one that always sticks in the memory for me, and it wouldn't be the best win that we ever had, but it was the longest cup tie ever. Was the 4
Bolton.
games with Bolton. The fact that we drew 2-2, it was 3-3. I think the first game, wasn't it? 3-3 at home. Went away, thought we were going to get beat because we were losing, equalised. They scored again. Phil Brown, I think it was, in extra time. And we equalised again, sat in the car park at Burndon Park to hear that we lost the toss and we'll be back up again next Tuesday night. Thanks very much. Came back up again, and it was a much more tepid 1-1 draw with very little action in the third game, which meant back to the county ground again for the fourth game. And Ross McLaren popped up in the 119th minute, I think.
It seemed absolutely certain to be destined to game number 5, didn't it? Until Ross got that goal. I thought, not another one, surely. But he managed to pop up with a close range goal, if I remember rightly. Great stuff. First away was that Liverpool one in the League Cup. That was the 5-0 defeat, I think, up at Anfield.
Yeah, it was.
Very disappointing night. I thought the crowd was only 16,000 there that night, which is really disappointing.
I prefer to remember the 2-2 in the Premier League. That was a much better day.
Yeah. Another one I missed. Thanks for reminding me. I neatly sidestep a Premier League season. How about that? That's pretty good.
Well, you missed the 6-0 the 6-1 at Newcastle. That famous day as well. That they never gave any tickets to away supporters. So
I know you went up there. Didn't you go up there some ridiculous days?
We had to go up the week before because they put 250 on general sale on the Monday morning. So you had to be in that first 250, and obviously had to pretend effectively that you were a Geordie. So we camped out overnight. Pretended we were students from somewhere in the East Midlands, and when we were asked, and ended up getting our tickets back down to Swindon, back up again on the Friday night. So we'd been there over Sunday night and Monday, back down for the couple of days, back up on the Friday, stayed overnight, got to the ground, had to try not to speak to anybody and give away the big broad Wiltshire accent. And we didn't really care when we were 4-0 down very, very early. And it didn't really matter so much then. And we were having quite a laugh with the Geordies by the time that John Moncur scored the best goal of the game.
That was with the dear departed Mark Walters, of course, I think, wasn't it?
It was.
Trip you made?
Yeah.
A year gone, unbelievable. Wigan at home under Paolo Di Canio was special. It certainly was. Benson winner, miles offside. You see, Matt Winger, Matt.
Richie.
Ritchie, yes, sorry. Matt Ritchie had the shot, didn't he? And Benson got the final touch. Great game that, Ray, wasn't it? I mean, they were a decent side in those days, Wigan, weren't they?
Yeah, it was. It was a real occasion. That was, again, sort of things not to do with the football. We actually had a kit for that one that was sponsored by the People, was it? Because ironically, they were the ones that ran the story that resulted in our troubles. And fast forward a few years, and we had a kit with them sponsoring it. Yeah,
they were the holders, weren't they? Wigan that year, didn't they win it the year before?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think they did. Yeah.
No, I think they won it after that, and then we were the last side to beat them for a long time.
Okay.
Yeah, we actually played Huddersfield that season and played them off the pitch. It's one of the best performances under Di Canio, if I remember rightly.
They were top of League One as well, weren't they, at the time?
Yeah, Simon Ferry scored. It was a great performance. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I can't go much further than that, really. That's pretty much it, really, in terms of cup matches. Sorry to show off and stuff, but one of the advantages of being old, I guess, really.
Well, I can claim I saw that, Vic, but I was in my mum's belly at the time, so I was there, but I can't say I remember much about it.
No. Interesting, isn't it? What has it given you, Ray? Do you think football? What has it given you?
Oh, it's a massive part of life I've led, really. It's always been there in the background, even the times when I played quite a bit when I was younger, and even when I wasn't playing, if I was playing at weekends, I'd get there on a Tuesday, but I've always been on top of the scores and things and knowing what's going on. And so it's been a massive part of my life, really. And and despite, I've prioritized probably watching over playing eventually as well. So I used to play Saturday, Sundays. That went down to Sundays only, so I could go Saturdays. Then when it wasn't really fair with work commitments and everything to do both things, I did eventually drop the playing for the watching, really. So it's always been a massive part, as I say, from being hooked in '75. It's always been there. And I think the Macari bit was what spurred me into sort of dropping the Saturdays after those wins against Sunderland, Sheffield Wednesday. I kind of pretty much around that time stopped playing on a Saturday and started watching, full time, really.
Yeah, actually, the Sunderland game gets kind of forgotten a bit, doesn't it? Because Sheffield Wednesday gets mentioned a lot. But, of course, they drew away at Sunderland. And then the following Saturday, lost narrowly at Hartlepool, played really well. And that was the kind of like kick-started the season, didn't it? After that, everything sort of started to come together. And, of course, as we know, after the new year, it was just one win after another, wasn't it? It's extraordinary, really. The special trains used to be good fun. Exeter away, Aldershot away in the Cup sticks in my mind. It was the same at Derby. Some town fans managed to get tickets. I was on the coach that got turned back around at Cricklade. Shame. What about you, Rob? I mean, it's this bizarre thing that there are some people you only ever see at football, but you've seen it for years and years and years. And it's an extraordinary thing, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it is. You mentioned Aldershot quickly there, actually. A little story about that one was Swindon wore the old World Cup Peru kit that day.
Yeah, they did.
The only time it was ever worn, the old all white with a red flash across. It was a very unusual game because John Dungworth scored the goals for Aldershot that night. I'll always remember that sort of name that sticks in your mind. There you go.
Andy Rowland scored for us, I think, didn't he?
Andy Rowland did score for us. Yes, you're right. Yeah, we still lost. But those special trains were great because we went to Burnley, I remember. We went to Carlisle, went to Newcastle. The Newcastle one was late, which I think is probably the reference we had earlier on. But aside from that, they were some very good days. But yeah, I mean, you talk about people you see at football, Vic, and it's true, isn't it? I mean, football's such a massive part of our football, our lives. We live and breathe it all the time, and it's the people around you though that make it special. Whichever way around you look at it, the football is great. Sometimes the football isn't great, but because you've actually been with people that you really want to spend some time with for most of that day. The football can take a back seat sometimes, especially when you're on these long 5-hour trips up north and whatever it might be, or 10 hours to Colchester, like it usually is. But it's one of those bizarre things, isn't it? Because you do just get talking to people about the hobby and the interests that that you both share. And like we're doing tonight, you just chinwag about memories that you've had from years and years gone by. And if you've shared it with people, that's what makes it so special.
Yeah, they're incredible memories. And I think most football fans can probably give you facts and figures of a game they saw in October, I don't know, 1984, but they can't remember what they did yesterday. It's an extraordinary thing, isn't it, really? I drove to Old Trafford in a hired van from Cardiff for the League Cup game when we wore the green-grey Castrol Magnatec kit, and afterwards drove over the Snake Pass to Sheffield to move house back down to Cardiff the following day. Peter Thorne score in that game?
It is, yeah.
They had Kanchelskis, didn't they? Or,
he scored the winner, didn't he? Yeah.
And then they brought Paul Scholes on, I think, didn't they? With about 15 minutes left. So, yeah, it was quite, I mean, it was quite an occasion. And I don't know about you, but I spent the first 10 minutes looking around going, wow, this is Old Trafford. Because the last time I went there, in the 70s, and it was a bit of a dump, to be honest, but it changed amazingly. Yeah.
Well, you missed the Premier League game when we obviously got ourselves an unlucky 3-2 defeat, because if that game had gone on 5 minutes longer, we'd 4-2 defeat, we might well have won it. But you talk about games that you've lost that stick in the memory, and talk about cup ties. Leeds away when Paul Robinson scores in the 120th minute to get themselves to penalties. And then lose on penalties. And that was a night, Leeds away, when actually we surpassed ourselves that night. We were absolutely outstanding and didn't get the result that day, but we all recall the Charlie Austin, Billy Painter day with a lot more fonder memories, don't we? When we went up there on Easter Monday or Good Friday, one or the other, wasn't it? Was one of the two. I can't remember. Easter Monday, I think. Won 3-0 and could have won 23-0. We were fabulous that day.
Yeah, we were fabulous. And of course, we won the home game 3-0 as well. So, yes, let's have a look. Can't be a football day like you all say. It's not just a football, it's meeting up and having a few drinks with the football family. That Aldershot memory is brilliant. Thanks for sharing. Someone somewhere will have one of those Peru kits in their loft. God, yeah, it'd be really nice to get hold of one of those, wouldn't it?
That would be a fabulous kit to see again, I have to say, because it really was. Yeah. It was a fabulous kit.
Yeah, we only used it once. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And I remember Bob Smith, who was manager at the time, I think, they used to sort of train in it, and he kind of had his picture taken with it. It's another thing that sticks in your mind. Another good turnaround game with Swindon 3, Sheffield Wednesday 2. They were 2-0 up and cruising at 80 minutes, and King brought 3 subs on, and they scored. Parkin, Fallon, and I've forgotten the other one. It was a midweek game, drove home buzzing. Paul Sturrock was manager of Sheffield Wednesday, I'm pretty sure, that day. And Sturrock did what Sturrock does. He never stays and watches extra time. So he went down the tunnel, and I think they were probably 2-2 at that stage, and didn't see the winning goal for Swindon. So just one of his anomalies. He never watched the injury time. Crazy to think we finished bottom of the Premier League, but most goals conceded by the champions was by us. 6. Yeah. That incredible day at home when Cantona was sent off. Amazing. Yes, I was there for that one. And an incredible moment, wasn't it? And he got sent off on the following Tuesday at Arsenal, I think, as well. So he didn't have a good week, Eric Cantona. By the way, if you've not seen the Eric Cantona film with him in the leading role, it's a fictitious role, but very good film indeed. So if you ever get a chance to see it. Well, we're wrapping up now. Thank you very much. We kept going for an hour, didn't we? We did all right. A lot of memories stirred, and another Monday of the close season passes. And next Monday, of course, will just be a few days away from getting those fixtures for the start of the season, which I think is August 2nd, 3rd, 4th, that weekend. Which game are you looking forward to most, Rob?
Which game am I looking forward to the most? I liked the away games at Barnet. I have to say, I'm quite pleased that they've come up, because they were always good away days. I was hoping Halifax were going to come up through the playoffs for the reasons I said at the start, but not to be. Never enjoy my our local derbies with Cheltenham, so I guess I'll probably have to say that one, won't I?
And we'll rekindle our relationship with Rovers, of course, this season. So
yeah, we always have some fun days with Bristol Rovers, don't we? So
their new away end.
Pretty evident to say which one I'm not looking forward to the most. Colchester away.
That'll be a Tuesday night, won't it?
It will.
Yeah. What else will be a Tuesday night? Probably Barrow away.
Well, we'd be due to get a Tuesday night in Barrow.
We
We
are
haven't got
due
that
to get
yet.
a Tuesday.
So.
Yeah. What about you, Ray?
I think the Rovers one, just because it's going to be a bit pantomime, isn't it, with the Holloway as well. I think
yes,
it'll be a bit of an occasion. So I'm quite looking forward to seeing them again.
It'll be interesting for him, won't it? I know he's a professional, he's a manager and all that. He must have been a manager against Rovers before, but you know, I always remember one particular event, he turned around and to Marcus Bignot and said, "How can I manage a team that wears red?" And you can understand what he meant by that. Because, you know, obviously with the other Bristol team. But no, we're looking forward to this season. I think, Rob, aren't we? I think it's going to be quite a ride somehow.
Well, based on the second half of last season, I mean, he's worked miracles, Coach Holloway, hasn't he, to get us to the position in the top half that we achieved in the end. And the signings so far this close season have just whetted the appetite for next year, haven't they? I mean, it's they've been good. You would hope that they are going to really complement what we've still got here. And the joy of anything else is the fact that we're doing our business early. So many years we've been having these calls, and so many years we still end up with half a team when it comes to that first pre-season friendly at Supermarine. But it feels like we're just going to have the bulk of the team together and just be adding to it at that point in time, which is exactly what you need for a professional outfit. So I've got all of my hopes behind him this year, and I think this could be a good season.
Yeah, I think we all have, Ray, haven't we? Talking that Supermarine game, talking missing matches, I have a family wedding that day. So I'm just trying to work out the logistics, trust me. But what about you? I mean, I am looking forward to it, Ray. It's going to be a roller coaster, as we all know. We'll look at the fixtures when they come out next week. Sky, I think, probably would be very interested in a lot of our games, especially the Rovers matches, I would hazard a guess. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, we're I'm looking forward to it. I mean, if it's enjoyable as the last part of last year was, then that's good for me as a starter for 10 kind of thing. I think I just hope we start sharply, but if we don't, let's be a bit patient. I think you can be confident that if we carry on building from where we are, we will start churning out results. So as long as there's a bit of patience if the first few don't go the right way. But I'm really looking forward to it, and I know quite a few of the punters are kind of see us as dark horses, don't they, at the moment? So I just hope we can sail underneath any pressure for a bit and build as we go, really.
I always think back to 85-86, and we started like a drain, quite frankly. Could have gone bottom of the league, beat Torquay on a Friday night, and then managed to just stay above that bottom place, and then had a great second half of the season, much like last year, really. We just didn't have enough games, did we? Thanks, Anthony. Great memories. Come on, you Reds. Absolutely right. Well, we'll be back next Monday and also next Thursday, week on Thursday, Fixtures Day, League Cup Draw Day, EFL Trophy Day, Pancake Thursday. I think it's everything on that day, isn't it? Something like that. So, thank you very much indeed, Rob. Thank you very much indeed, Ray. Chris, I had a few internet problems, so apologies for that. And we'll catch up with Chris next week. Thank you all very much indeed for listening and watching. And we'll be back in 7 days' time. Have a good week. And eventually, Chris will maybe close us down, but whilst she can't, I'll just say, Supermarine on is our first friendly.